Officer Gradowski of WeAreChange.org here in New Hampshire at PorcFest. And as you probably already know, Bitcoin has soared to over $11,000. And to talk about this, plus a lot more, we have Bitcoin maximalist YouTuber, sort of a controversial figure. We're going to go into some of those controversies in a little bit, but specifically, we want to concentrate on the actual news that's happening here. Tony Vase has a very interesting perspective that's different, and it's important to entertain and to look at all sides of the coin here. But specifically, before we get into the dollar and the Bolivia and all that other stuff, what do you make of 11,000? And is it on the backdrop of Facebook's announcement because of Libra? What's your take on this new price soar? And do you think it's connected to Libra like some people are saying?
Hey Luke, always a pleasure seeing you again at these events. I actually think that if it does influence the whole Libra announcement, if it is influencing the price of Bitcoin, it's very, very minor. I mean, Bitcoin is generally in its own ecosystem. I think the only things that actually affect the price of Bitcoin are major, are global yet minor economic events. For example, the Cyprus banking confiscation, while it was major for the people of Cyprus, didn't really affect the rest of the world. The Greek banking shutdown, while major for the people in Greece, not really major around the world. So these kinds of economic shocks, like when if India was a little bit more of a first world nation, when they canceled their bills, that was a shock. Like the next time the Swiss peg breaks, the next time there's another Brexit, these kinds of economic shocks in first world nations, that will greatly help Bitcoin. Also, the attempts to confiscate cash and things like that, the attempts to censor payments. I don't think this Libra thing, I mean, it's in the news. If anything, it affects Bitcoin is that people are talking about crypto. People think that Facebook is building a decentralized cryptocurrency, which they're not. But they're explaining it as such, so the governments have this wrong impression that Facebook is actually building a decentralized cryptocurrency. So the governments are being hostile towards Facebook when in reality they shouldn't. So all this weird stuff is happening, is putting Bitcoin and crypto in the news. So maybe it's indirectly affecting it a little bit, but I really think that when the price starts rising, more people are just interested.
Yeah, I remember you're just giving a talk here about the history of Bitcoin and the price of it going up and down. And I'm like, hey, I was there. I was there actually in India when they did the currency reset, and people were just screwed because the Indian government was trying to figure out a way to get rid of kind of cash transactions so they could tax it more. I was there in Greece with the pensioners when they were not allowed to take out money on the shock. And really, cryptocurrency seems like the rational future. A lot of dangers, still the Wild West, but so much amazing potential, especially with the latest price here. But so is the dollar. You were one of the few speakers a couple years ago talking about, hey, the dollar is going to be strong, the dollar is going to be good. And a lot of people are saying, well, no, because of the natural waves and flows of the dollar usually goes up. Usually there's a sequence, usually every 7 years, there's up and down. That down hasn't happened. People are saying that the bubble is inflated, but now you're saying that this bubble is not going to pop, correct me if I'm wrong, and that the dollar is going to be stronger. You've been right on your analysis before. What makes you think the dollar is going to be stronger from here? Because this is interesting perspective that we don't hear from anybody else.
Yeah, I've been very bullish on the dollar and the U.S. stock market pretty much since I started becoming public as a YouTuber. We're taking this back to like 2014 when I first came out, started writing articles. So I've been bullish on the U.S. stock market and the dollar ever since, because American companies are still very, very profitable. American companies are still leading the world. I mean, granted, there are some Chinese companies, but one of the reasons why they benefit so much is because China doesn't allow U.S. companies. So in a way, people are mad at Trump for all of his protectionist policies, but he's almost fighting back because China doesn't allow U.S. companies there. And however, everything that I said about the dollar and the stock market had to rely on a Republican president getting in. Like if Hillary would have gone in, or if Bernie Sanders would have gone in, this would have been a very, very different scenario. But with Trump is more of a capitalistic president that is helping the private sector. And as the U.S. companies do well, pretty much so will the dollar. The other aspect of it is that as much as people hate all this money printing by the US, it's still the most responsible money printer in the world of any major nation that has to support the entire world. US dollars are absorbed globally. People are way more worried about the euro and what's going on there. That's why the euro is slowly depreciating against the dollar. I mean, if it's not the dollar, where are you going to put your money? No one cares about gold anymore, and you can't really spend gold. If you have to put your currency somewhere, it's going to be the US dollar. And I think that if anything falters the US economy in the next 5 to 10 years, it's going to be the strength of the US dollar, making US companies having difficulty to sell their goods abroad. So I'm still bullish on the US dollar, and we'll see what happens. Maybe Bitcoin can cut a chunk into it, but that's still, probably a decade away.
Yeah, and I think this is an interesting perspective because even mainline financial experts, like mainstream experts, are like, okay, there needs to be a correction in the economy, or the 2008 kind of economic downturn happened, and it feels like they just kind of put more into this big bubble. So it's interesting to hear a different perspective because there hasn't been a correction when a lot of people are saying there would be.
But the correction in the economy doesn't necessarily weaken the US dollar. When we had a big correction in 2008, I mean, people wanted to get as many dollars as they could. I mean, if you can sell your house earlier and get it into US dollars, you were happy because the real estate prices were dropping. Gold dropped 30% in 2008, mostly because when the banks are falling apart and all small businesses are on the brink of collapse because the banks are falling apart and they can't even get their short-term loans in to keep their business, because most businesses run day-to-day operations. When everything's falling apart, people are losing their jobs. If they happen to have gold, they're selling it to put food on the table. What are they selling it for? Dollars. You're trying to hold on to as many dollars as you can. So that's not what really falters it. What kills your currency is the loss and fate of the people of your country in that currency. So basically, when Zimbabwe took away the land from the people and started giving it away to their local poor people, all the people with money lost faith in their currency. We had a discussion after my presentation of someone whose grandfather was in a Weimar Republic in the 20s, where they had to pay so much debt, the government no longer valued their own currency and said, well, we're just going to inflate it on purpose so we can pay back this debt. I mean, the US government is not in the business of destroying the US dollar. I mean, they're printing and printing and printing, but no matter what they can do, they can't lower the price of the dollar. Is being absorbed globally. So as long as the U.S. companies are functioning well, it's great. And I do think with the economy the way it is, I mean, if Trump doesn't get reelected, I'm going to be shocked. Yeah. It's all about the economy. My question is Trump going to break the record for the highest margin of victory for a sitting president as he gets reelected? I'm not saying whether I want that or not. I'm not saying if that's good or not. I'm just saying that's the reality that I'm betting on.
Yeah. I also think from looking at everything that I'm seeing that Donald Trump will win re-election. I mean, you look at the Democratic Party, there's so many things we could even get into and talk about that specific issue. But during your talk, you brought up an interesting point, and this all kind of circulates in faith, in belief. If you believe in something, it will be popular, it will be good. The faith in the dollar is very strong. There's no denying that, especially globally. The interesting adding note, I'm saying that wrong, but that you said during your speech was during, of course, a major earthquake that happened in San Francisco that globally changed the American economy very significantly and caused a major downturn in the early 1900s. And it was because of something that many people, believed to be a very negative turn, and that caused a kind of run on the banks. This could happen at any time. The U.S. government has confiscated gold before, so there's a lot of volatility in the U.S. market as well. But specifically, how do you address a lot of people who disagree with you, a lot of the controversy, some people saying that you're wrong and you have been wrong? How would you best address kind of this Wild West environment with the criticism that you get sometimes for your different opinions than a lot of other kind of orthodox cryptocurrency thinking?
Yeah, so look, I've been wrong a bunch of times in the past. I'm trying to correct that. It takes a little while to recognize mistakes. I mean, here's one of those mistakes. Is very simple. Back in 2011, 2012, when I was following the libertarian movement, when I was following the Ron Paul campaign, that's when I became aware of Bitcoin, even though I didn't buy it till 2013. But one of the things I was becoming was a gold bug. I was buying gold, I was buying silver back in those days. It wasn't at the high, thank God, but it was a few years after that. And it wasn't until a couple of years ago when I realized how useless silver actually is, because silver used to be money for a long time, even better money than gold. But with technology of the 20th century, when gold could be used as a micropayment at any scale by backing your paper currency, silver no longer had any monetary value, and it simply becomes a utility metal. And on these big things, yeah, eventually I am wrong, and I'll admit it. As far as the price of Bitcoin is concerned, yes, I have been expecting slightly lower prices of Bitcoin. I thought this bear market would last longer and deeper because it doesn't feel like people learned their lessons. I was there for all of 2013 rise in the price of Bitcoin. I was there throughout the entire 2-year bear market. After that, and people really learned their lessons. A lot of the crypto companies went bust, people went broke, people quit the space. That didn't happen this time. And that's why this run-up in Bitcoin caught me by surprise. I'm not ready to admit we're in a big bull market. I'm still nervous. This is a giant bull trap that's going to just annihilate people's wealth. And I'm still waiting for a pullback. If that pullback does not take us down below 3,000, if that pullback is only a 30 to 40% correction, we establish a new clean low and we start going to new all-time highs, I'll call a bull market because it's not always important about getting it at the low. It's important about how much wealth you get to retain and how much more wealth you get to build. So I'm not ready to admit I've been wrong on the current levels of Bitcoin, but when I have to, I will.
The markets will tell, and I still remember being here at PorcFest a very long time ago, seeing a table. Hey, we got some new online digital money, cryptocurrency. It's called Bitcoin. I'm like, what? And it was a bunch of like skinny, hunchbacked over little nerdy guys. They're like, yeah, but give me money for. I'm like, I gotta give you money for what? You're gonna give me a paper wallet? What am I supposed to do with this? What is this bull crap and malarkey? And then I remember Max Kaiser telling me about this even before being here at PorcFest. I couldn't get service. I was like, you know what? Yeah, I'll entertain. I'll grab a little bit. I couldn't get service. Didn't get it. Bitcoin was at nothing. But it happens. Tony, we're over our 10 minutes. Anything else you want to say specifically, and where can people find out more information about you?
Sure. Well, I just want everyone to remember why Bitcoin is different. A part of what I do is talk about the price of Bitcoin, but that's not why I joined the space. I joined the space for what's written on my t-shirt. Unconfiscatable, censorship-resistant store of value. I spend the majority of my time traveling the world and explaining the value proposition of Bitcoin. I believe that Bitcoin will eat all of the other altcoins. I don't believe they're necessary. I believe they're insecure. And that's what I really, really focus on. And all of my haters and all of my trolls have very short attention spans. And eventually they come and go. But I'm still here, and I will continue to educate people about Bitcoin. If you want to learn more, just Google Tone Vase, tonevase.com, Tone Vase on YouTube, Tone Vase on Twitter, and eventually on Instagram as well. Trying to learn it. It's for the younger crowd. I'm getting there. Everything is Tone Vase. I have conferences. One is called Unconfiscatable in Vegas. The other one is called Understanding Bitcoin in Malta. I already did them this year, so they're coming early next year.
Yeah, definitely a different perspective than you usually get here, Tony. I'm going to put your link in the YouTube channel in the description below. So if you want more from Tony, check him out. And once again, sincerely, thank you for being a part of independent media, sharing a rich viewpoint perspective on, of course, this Wild West economic crazy world that we live in. Stay tuned for more here on WeAreChange.org.